It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, we are looking ahead to Saturday's game at Craven Cottage against Brighton and Hove Albion. We'll also have a final word on Leeds, but we're not going to dwell on it too much because there have been some exciting transfer rumours. Oscar Bobb could be coming to Craven Cottage. So we'll get into that, plus all of the other latest links and rumours. And I'm reunited on the Thursday Club with Jack Collins. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you. This is an incredibly exciting day. First of all, because you're back,
Thanks.
Which is wonderful.
Return of the Mac.
You were in South America for your 3-week and a bit honeymoon. How was it?
Yeah, I had an amazing time. Just incredible football cultures, absolutely everywhere. But it was also quite nice to switch off and step back from it. It's the first real kind of break from podcasting I've taken in 5 years or so. So to get that little breather, I've come back recharged, refreshed, re-energized, and I can't wait for the second half of the season now. So it was really, really lovely, and I had a brilliant time. Lots of different places. Rio was incredible for New Year. I loved Buenos Aires. I might move to Buenos Aires if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Like a real kind of culture shock and being like, oh, this is everything I'd hoped it would be. Uruguay as well, very cool history, etc. So I had the most amazing time, and very, very grateful.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, a lot of Fulham fans have been talking about how the AFCON boys are back this week. But obviously, I think a lot of people have failed to realise you're back this week as well. And that's obviously going to make a big difference on the pitch.
Yeah, well, look, I'm hoping that, when you put me and Alex Iwobi together in a midfield, it starts to move forward at a greater pace. But yeah, no, it's an opportune time to be back. Not an opportune time necessarily to go away, given the state of the football world as I was away. And all of the stories that kept dropping me like, wow, okay, I'm not going to be talking about that. So that's good. So it was nice to kind of watch it from afar and be able to sort of sit back and read. But I managed to stay across Fulham. I had a brilliant experience in Buenos Aires. I found a little bar with a little red door. And in there, I was like, I said to Lucy, I was like, look, I'm really not trying to push football into this trip. It was the South American off season. So we visited some stadiums, but we didn't do any games because, well, no one was playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I really want to watch Fulham Chelsea. And it was like a Tuesday at like 4 p.m. Buenos Aires time. And so we found this little bar. I went upstairs and I was like, are you showing, Fulham versus Chelsea? And the guy was like, who do you support? I was like, Fulham. And he was like, And I was like, oh no, like, please don't tell me you're a Chelsea fan. He said, no, I support Tottenham. I was like, what are you going to me for? Like, why are you coming to me? He was like, I was going to put Tottenham on the big screen, but now you're here. I can't. So he put Tottenham on his own little screen. They lost to Bournemouth, so actually he turned out quite happy. So I was watching the Fulham game, the Fulham Chelsea game in there. And then basically when we scored, like in the first half that was disallowed, I went absolutely ballistic, as you can't imagine. And this geezer from the other side of the pub walks over and he's like, you must be the only Fulham fan in Buenos Aires. And I was like, where's this? And he turns out he was an expat Chelsea fan, and he'd been watching it over with his wife, and it was just a lot of fun. But like, obviously, when the second one went in, he came over afterwards. He was like, "Yeah, well played." And I was like, "Okay, all right, we're not going to do the animosity thing, are we? We're just going to go with it." But it was great to watch that with a Quilmes, which is my new favourite lager. So I'm going to be, doing going to be ordering a crate of that and watching the games from home because apparently we win derbies when I'm not there.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've been pretty good in your absence. Also, and I know that people who listen to Fulhamish hate it when we mention visual references, but if you are watching this on YouTube, you might notice that the studio looks a little bit different. We've moved house. We are still in the borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. I must admit, we're not far from West Brompton Station now, in our new little studio setup. So hope you like it. And if you need a studio for anything in the Hammersmith and Fulham area, please do get in touch. We'd love to have you here. Right, we have digressed enough. Let's do a little bit of a final word on Leeds. But look, George on Monday kind of did it. They did it to death, the gang there, and there isn't a lot more to say. It was obviously a really poor day at the inn. I think my reaction to it, I was obviously angry because it was a really poor performance, and I can understand that if you went to Leeds and went all that way, you would be angrier because it was a really inept performance.
Yeah.
But I guess like after a few days, the big picture is that it's not a disaster because we had a lot of credit in the bank from the past few weeks. I guess it's just missed opportunity and maybe just like some of what we expected during this AFCON period, i.e. we would struggle because we've lost lots of key players and we don't really have the depth that we need. We haven't felt it at all. And it's been really impressive that Marco's managed to kind of get us through this period. But I guess maybe that Leeds performance and struggle was kind of what we expected throughout the whole month of the AFCON.
Yeah, I mean, look, just not the races, right? Like, it's as simple as that. And look, Ellen Road has been a very difficult place to go in recent weeks. I don't think Leeds were brilliant. I thought that they were, quite wasteful. I thought they were the better side on the day, but I didn't think that was a vintage performance from them either. And look, in some ways, it was the exact mirror image of the game at Craven Cottage, right? Like, where we were slightly the better side and we got a little bit of luck at the end of the game and the ball went into the back of the net and we got 3 points. And you look at this, and it's pretty similar in reverse. And we talked a lot last year about the fact that obviously the win at the Bridge on Boxing Day felt kind of reversed by what happened in April. And it was like the exact same scenario playing out twice. And I think this is just one of those. Over the course of 90 minutes against Leeds this season, you'd probably say that 3 points each is a relatively fair reflection of where the two teams have been in those two games. So, yeah, like obviously an element of frustration around the performance, and I totally get that. I think some of the reactions to it have been really aggressively over the top. Like obviously Jedi was very poor, right, in this game. That's fine. But like some of the drop him and, don't play him again. This has been our player of the season in the last couple of years. He's been one of the finest servants to Fulham Football Club under Marco Silva. He is allowed to have a bad game here and there, especially when he's on the recovery trail from injury. Like I feel like some of the discourse around Anthony Robinson is like, never play him again for Fulham. It's bizarre in so many ways. So I just thought I'd talk about that briefly because, it's very easy to forget what a wonderful, wonderful player Anthony Robinson has been for us. And obviously this season has been frustrating to have him missing for such long periods of it. He's now working his way back into the team and he has to find that rhythm and get back into the swing of what this team are doing, etc. And look, it's fine to be like, okay, maybe he gets rested next game and there's a rotation and players play for their place. This is a meritocracy. But also, I don't think we should just immediately be like, oh, he's done, he's finished, he's cooked, he should never play for us again because he has one bad performance on the wing. Like, it didn't feel right to me. I didn't like it.
No, and also, like, okay, it's not that he's been consistently bad since he came back. No, I appreciate
he's had a couple of bad games, fine.
But he's also has a couple of good games. Yeah. West Ham away in particular, he was brilliant. Game-changing for us, in fact. You really, really felt his impact on that side. And the Burnley game, there were ropey moments in the Burnley game, but there was also real positivity. I think that third goal comes around because of one of Anthony Robinson's flying runs down the wing. Palace obviously makes a mistake, but then also is involved in the goal. It's been mixed, right? He's struggled. But like, I think Anthony Robinson's always been a bit boom or bust. Anthony Robinson's also always, I think, even though he's got better season on season, almost any season, I can look back and find one or two games where Anthony just drops a little bit of a stinker. Possibly just like that he is victim of his own success in some way.
Yeah. If you set the bar incredibly high, then obviously when you drop below the bar, people are like, what are you doing? But that doesn't mean the bar hasn't been set high.
He's quite a high risk, high reward player, but that does mean that occasionally it backfires because he's always up the pitch and he's trying things. He's trying to make things happen. It was just one of those games on Saturday where he just couldn't pass the ball straight.
Yeah, like it just didn't fall for him. It just felt like he was off, and like that's fine. And look, you can criticize that. I have no problem with people criticizing it. I have a problem with it being blown out of proportion.
Yeah,
like and I do think that in a period where he's trying to work his way back, last season or last summer, for example, we were all deadly scared that there was going to be a massive bid for Anthony Robinson, and that was going to take him away from Fulham Football Club. And now 6 months later, it's like, drop him. Like that doesn't quite add up to me. And look, it's not to say that anyone's infallible because they've had a good season the year before, but it does it's quick. It's stunning to me how quickly people forget how good he is.
Yeah. Let's move on to a very exciting transfer rumour link that kind of dropped out of nowhere, and you know that there's some gravitas towards it. And I know people don't like him, but Fabrizio tweeted about it. David Ornstein reported on it. Some of the big dogs of the transfer world.
If it comes from Ornstein, I tend to feed that and be like, right, there's real truth within this.
Yeah, Oscar Bobb, Fulham closing in on a £35 million deal. He's one of those players who, to me, just feel a little bit like Man City wallpaper. I don't really notice Oscar Bobb too much because there's just so many players in the Manchester City machine, and it's kind of hard to keep track of them. However, what I have seen of Man City over the years is I've always thought that they regarded Oscar Bobb as a real future superstar for them. So not gonna lie, when this dropped, obviously that the agreement isn't done, but when the words are closing in on a £35 million agreement, you tend to think it's looking pretty positive.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that this is happening. I mean, it's a great deal. It seems on the face of it, perfect. Exactly what we need.
Yeah, I mean, look, quickly from the City perspective, obviously Semenyo's just gone in there. You look at Bobb, and he's someone who's struggled with injuries. Across the course of his career, he's not had brilliant luck with that at such a young age, and that is a slight concern, I'll be honest, that at the point where his body is supposed to be perhaps the most resilient, he's struggling a little bit to find that consistency, but equally his minutes have been, rotated within a different kind of element. So you have to take it all with a slight pinch of salt. In terms of the City pecking order, they didn't sell Savinho last summer when they could have done. Doku's there. Semenyo's come in. Bernardo probably leaves in the summer, but then the Cherki, Marmoush, Foden, who all can play centrally, but who also can play wide. And I wonder if he's just looking at it and saying there is too many hoops for me to jump through here to be getting a consistent run of games. And with the World Cup in the summer and Norway, being the kind of dark horses for a lot of people in that, he wants to make sure that he's within that conversation. And he's got to get above a few bigger names, I think, right now. Antonio Nusa having a really, really good season. There are some players that he needs to kind of make sure
squad.
He'll be in the squad. But, to knock on the door of a starting 11, I think that you have to be playing. And I don't think he's going to get that at City. It feels to me that Fulham have seen an opportunity to move for it. Now, Borussia Dortmund were very interested. So I'm intrigued a little bit as to what's happened there in terms of where that happened. But just quickly on him, unbelievably incredible close control dribbler, someone who has that ability to kind of touch the ball multiple times, almost a little bit Bernardo Silva like in that kind of element where he's able to kind of shuffle through defenders with a lot of little touches. He's very, very good at receiving on one foot and then shifting onto the other to make space. I quite like his versatility. Can play on either flank, can play through the middle. It would be a little bit false ninety, but he is someone who's played that role before. And I think that his ability to go at a player and beat them one-on-one is something that Fulham have turned to a little bit more and more in recent years, right? You look at someone like a Sammy James coming in and the impact he's had by being an explosive one-on-one dribbler. I think that we're seeing a slight change in the dynamic of what Fulham are looking for in those areas. And I think that with the success that Chukwueze has had in the last couple of weeks, months, Silva is probably looking for other options who can also take a man on. Now, there's been a little bit of discussion about what this means for the squad, whether this means that the Chukwueze deal can't go through in the summer, something's fallen through on, with Milan, or Harry Wilson isn't going to sign a new contract. I think whilst those are both possibilities, the real thing for me here is that Fulham are willing to let Adama leave. We know that Marco Silva likes to have double ups on in every position, but on either wing, and players who can play across that front line. I think this would probably be a kind of like for like swap with Adama, or obviously we're paying a lot more for Bobb. The other thing is, I think financially, Fulham are trying to get younger from a squad building perspective, and they will have seen in the last 7 months, 8 months, 6 players go for 60, 70 million. You look at Semenyo, you look at Cunha, you look at Brian Mbeumo, you look at Wissa, obviously slightly different type of player, but a lot of players who are coming in here and who are in this, who count as kind of wide forwards, if you will, who are able to either create or make things happen, especially if they're young, slightly younger, are going for that sort of £70 million bracket. And I think Fulham probably see an opportunity here to go, right, you get Oscar Bobb in, if he plays regularly for 2-3 years and he starts to turn it up, someone in the Premier League will buy him for £70 million. And that's turning a big, big profit, which is something we haven't done so much in recent years. So that's, I think, what the thinking behind the move, as much as he would be an impactful signing, would be.
Yeah. I mean, there's shades of the Harry Wilson signing 5 years ago, i.e. didn't quite cut through at a big club. It feels like a big fee. Obviously, Harry Wilson felt like a big fee for a championship side at the time.
Yeah.
And look, Harry Wilson's not going to have that 60, 70 million pounds. But I think Harry Wilson...
He's definitely not if he doesn't sign a new contract.
No, but Harry Wilson has more than paid back kind of that initial investment. It seems like a smart move all round. And Fulham has been, in the last few years, lots of kind of bandage jobs, right? Adama was definitely a short-term bandage job.
Sure.
We just need someone in who's got experience, who knows the Premier League.
Who's on a free.
Yeah, who might just... add a bit of a different option in games. It's worked all right. It's been a bit of a bad ending, but like it's been fine. But actually, if you're to progress and keep kind of being in this Premier League middle order, which is obviously where Fulham want to be, you do need to make those kind of signings. And from City's perspective, I guess as well, because he's a homegrown player, this is pure profit on the books. I'm not 100%.
Well, effectively they're getting back up half of Semenyo.
Yeah.
So,
but also it's better.
It would end up being profit. Yeah.
It's complete pure profit for them, so I can understand it. But it just seemed like one of those transfer deals that I was surprised that we were able to. Well, we haven't done it yet, but it feels like a coup.
It feels like we're shopping in that kind of market, though. Like that. This would be again. I mean, I'm not 100% sure if it would 100% eclipse the fee for Kevin. But it's in that bracket, right?
Yeah.
We've got Smith Rowe out of that bracket. We've got Kevin in that kind of bracket. We're now looking at Oscar Bobb in that kind of bracket. And look, if the rumours to be believed that the Ricardo Pepi interest is real, that doesn't mean we're going to sign him. There's another player in that kind of bracket that Fulham are starting to explore. So I think it's interesting that this is now a price point that Fulham are starting to work at. And maybe that's the result of a couple of years in the Premier League and thinking, okay, we have a little bit more money to spend in these areas that we can push the boat out a little bit for a couple of different transfers. But I think it's very, very interesting to see how Fulham operate now within the transfer market and what that means going forward.
And I guess we've always talked about January being a bad time to make deals. I guess this January market has a slight difference in that players like Oscar Bobb are thinking about the World Cup.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are cheaper. But it means I think players are more likely to move in January than they perhaps otherwise would be. Like, I don't think Conor Gallagher would have joined Tottenham in the summer. I just don't think that's a feasible option. I think now with 6 months before a World Cup and thinking, can I play myself back into the squad? Suddenly those things become available and you start to think about it in a slightly different way. As you say, I think Oscar Bobb would have been in the Norway squad anyway. I also wonder if he thinks this is just a good opportunity for him to remain in the Premier League, to play for a manager who is forward thinking and wants to get his wingers on the ball. Fulham are a team that goes down those wide channels quite a lot. And look, this is the other thing about some of the names that are being thrown around at the moment with Fulham. And just to kind of come away from Oscar Bobb for a second, we've seen links in the last couple of days to obviously Ricardo Pepi, but also Troy Parrott, reported by Miguel Delaney. We've seen Evan Ferguson being thrown around in that conversation. And look, I have differing views on all of it. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting is that Fulham aren't in the Jürgen Strand-Larsen conversation. And I spend a fair bit of time these days with Sean Derry on the radio in America, and he basically used to coach as Gary O'Neill's assistant. He was at Crystal Palace. One of the things we've talked about quite a lot is Jürgen Strand-Larsen and where he was with those bids from Newcastle in the summer and why it's not quite working for him at Wolves this season. There's obviously a bit of a turn from Wolves fans on him in terms of his perceived application, should we say. But one of the things that Sean was talking about was he thrives on balls in behind, crosses, etc. And I was thinking about this and thinking, well, if he's on the market at a relatively low rate, Fulham are a team that cross the ball almost more than anybody else. And I'm a little bit surprised that Fulham are looking at someone like a Troy Parrott, for example, as opposed to a Strand-Larsen, not because I don't think Troy Parrott is a better player than him. I also would like Troy Parrott to stay at RZ for the time being. He's got the most important game of his life coming up in March and he needs to play week in, week out. But like in terms of, the profile of striker, I think it's interesting that he doesn't quite fit in the same way that other players who are linked, Ferguson, Strand-Larsen, etc., Pepi, get their movement in the box and they get on the end of things, etc., is slightly different to what Parrott does. And I find that interesting from a Fulham perspective.
I maybe haven't watched the right games. I do not understand the Strand-Larsen hype. And look,
if you've watched him this season, I can completely understand.
No, but even last season, I actually remember...
He just gets on the end of things.
I remember actually the game where we lost 4-1. I remember thinking he was bad. He wasn't good in that game, and everyone for Wolves was good. And I remember watching him thinking, like, I just don't think you've got it. And look, please clip this up when Fulham sign Jorgen Strand Larsen. He's our top scorer, and he scores in a final. Please,
no, sure.
I'm more than willing.
If Fulham spent £50 million on Jorgen Strand Larsen, I'd be furious. Right, like I'm not suggesting that he's an absolute.
I get it on the profile point.
But if you were on a profile perspective, if he is available for the sort of £25 million that are being talked about right now, I think I'd take that gamble. I really do.
I mean, sure, if it's an absolute steal, but why are Wolves going to let him go for
Well,
nothing?
they're not playing him.
Yeah, I know, but they still like.
Well, if they get relegated, then they're not going to have the leverage to be able to deal with it. I don't think there's going to be a bidding war for him.
No, but I mean, I think also just from a point of view of when they're offered 50, 60 million or whatever they were from Newcastle in the summer. I think climb down and accept 25 in January.
Well, that's exactly what Crystal Palace have just done with Mark Gay.
Yeah, I know, but like Wolves fans are fuming with their club right now, and Mark Gahey's a specific situation that they've just decided they're going to cash in.
Yeah, I just think Wolves will cash in on him. Like, I think that they are now building something different. They're building something with the idea of coming straight back up in the from the Championship, as opposed to being like, we genuinely believe we can survive here. I think it's a good time to go shopping at Wolves, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Yeah,
there's a few other bits of transfer news as well. I thought it was interesting that Paris FC are potentially interested in signing Issa Diop. Just paper talk at the moment, but I don't know if I see that one happening.
Got a lot of money, Paris FC.
They do have a lot of money,
and they are flying high at the moment because they just knocked PSG out of the Coupe de France.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, look, if they go to him, you start every single game.
Oh, I can see
the appeal.
Yeah,
I don't know what it would cost to get Issa Diop out of Fulham, but I'd suggest probably about what he came in for. You're 15 million, 20 million.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely think there is an element of, I think,
if that offer came in and Fulham are convinced by like Luc de Fougerolles as a kind of backup and someone who's going to step into that backup role, then do you take that 20 million and reinvest it? I think you probably do. Like, whether you do it now or in the summer is probably a slightly different question, because obviously Luc de Fougerolles is off on loan. But like, do you have enough depth to be able to deal with an injury to Joachim Andersen if you don't have Issa Diop? No, probably not right now. But in terms of long-term planning, if that offer comes in, I think you probably do take it maybe in the summer.
And from one Luke to another, Luke Harris cancelled the loan at Oxford and then moved to Wycombe, which I thought was an interesting deal.
It's going to annoy everyone there, isn't it? That's not too far away from each other.
No.
I thought it was, I mean, look, he was excellent in Ligue 1 last year. Has obviously jumped up to the Championship, has struggled a little bit and has gone back down to League One to chase promotion again. I don't think it's the best sign in the world, but also if he wasn't getting the minutes at Oxford, and look, maybe Luke Harris isn't the kind of player you want in a relegation scrap, right? Like he's a clever, diminutive little footballer, and that's not to question his work rate or anything like that. Maybe he's the kind of player that you want if you're pushing for something, someone who's got the ability to make a little bit of magic happen. And, at the moment, I don't think a team, top of the Championship or pushing for Championship promotion is making that move. So he's gone somewhere where perhaps the style of football suits him a little bit more and he's going to get more opportunities. So I don't think it's necessarily a massive step back, but a little bit frustrating that he wasn't able to kind of make it stick in the Championship.
One from Peter Rutzler a couple of days ago on Arthur Atta from Udinese, and he reported that Udinese wants 40 million euros for Atta, which is about 35 million pounds. Fulham did make a quite low bid of under 20 million pounds earlier in the window, which was flat out rejected.
Yeah, reasonable as well.
Not someone that I'm particularly familiar with, but I know that you've done a little bit of digging into him.
Yeah, I quite like this. He's a real all-rounder, I think. And obviously there's an element of risk when you bring in a player from Serie A, given the difference in physicality. And look, that's not to criticise the league. It's just slightly different in the way that things operate. But he did well for Metz in France as well. One of those very clever, does a bit of everything players in the midfield. I think he will end up as a more attacking 8, but he's been utilised in a lot of different roles this year. He's still, I think, only 22 years old, so room to grow. But I like the kind of utilitarian nature of his game, and I do think as he progresses, he will end up being a player that ends up kind of improving the kind of attacking side of his game more than defensive, which is kind of already there. So it would be a bit of a gamble signing. I think that the fee being quoted is quite high. but I can understand why Udinese are holding out for that kind of figure, because there's interest from the biggest clubs in Italy. There's interest from Juventus, and has been for a little while. So to kind of make that move and try and get a jump on those sides, I think that they can, reasonably ask for a bigger fee. They don't tend to sell on the cheap, Udinese. And I think what they've kind of ended up doing here is putting a price on this that Fulham probably won't pay. But I think that if they were to, there's a gamble on a player at that kind of, again, 35 million kind of pound price point, where you expect a player to be a superstar at Fulham immediately at 35 million. I'm not 100% sure he's a superstar yet, although I think he has the potential to be an excellent midfielder in the future.
Yeah, incredibly exciting. We'll do the Brighton preview in a second, but first of all, wanted to come on to a topic that I know has really put a few noses out of joints in the fan base about Man United ticket sales. I mean, Fulham's away following this season, I'm not just saying this bias, it's been really good. I mean, like we took 3,000 fans to Leeds on Saturday, and I'm not sure I've seen Fulham take that big an allocation up north in January, unless it's like something special like first day or last day of the season. And sold out Everton this season. You can just tell that the groundswell of away support is really improving. Probably helped as well by the whole £30 tickets thing. I think there are plenty of fans out there who actually choose to only go to away games rather than home games because of the cost of going to games at Craven Cottage. But this really has upset quite a few people, so I think it would be remiss of us not to mention it. Particularly saw this on a tweet from Adamski FFC, but I saw other people tweet about it too, about how Fulham put away tickets on sale last Monday for United, and then after selling more than 1,500 in 5 days, decides to stop sales on Saturday and send back the rest 2 weeks before the game, as they were worried it wouldn't sell out. So I think a lot of people were about to buy their Man United ticket. Maybe they were just waiting to get the Leeds game out of the way. Maybe they also just took an educated decision of, seems like there's lots of tickets, I'll just get round to that next week. These things happen, right? I've done it before where I've just kind of like, okay, this isn't selling out like right now, I'll just put that
I'll buy it next week,
which, like, look, is if you took that risk and it sold out, then
if it's sold out, fine.
Then that's more for you. But I think this, to me, just once again, it feels like the communication at the club. Like, I get it that the club basically has to pay for all of the away tickets, right? So if there is 1,000 unsold away tickets,
that's 30,000 quid.
That's on the club to stump up that cost, and they want to avoid that where possible.
Sure.
And the club doesn't get any extra money for selling more away tickets. Obviously, they probably want as many away fans to go as possible because it's good for the team, but it's not really financial.
It makes no financial difference.
There's no financial incentive. But what I think Fulham just always, like, put it on the site. Say, actually, if we don't sell X amount of tickets by X date, we will send them back.
Yeah.
If you put it out there in black and white.
It's not hard to communicate.
No one can complain in that sense. If it's said there in black and white, if we have only sold X amount by Y date, we will send them back. And they don't do that. They just make an arbitrary decision on a Saturday and just go, because I know Elizabeth from here was thinking of going to United, and she messaged on Monday and went, oh, whoops, they've sold out.
Yeah.
And
they hadn't sold out. That's not true.
and so I think Elizabeth is one of hundreds, if not, I think Fulham would comfortably sell out 2,400 tickets at Old Trafford. And maybe you could say that, well, you should be a bit more on it and be a bit more organised and but we all do it. And when we know that something isn't going to sell out in seconds, we all go, okay, we'll just get that done next week.
Yeah, I mean, look, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Like, if you've never, ever not bought a ticket on the first day you can do it, then fair enough.
Yeah.
You can come and drop it in the comments and I will take it. But I don't believe there is anyone out there who does that. I just don't. Like, it just makes no sense to me. Like, especially as you're saying, like 2,400. If 1,500 are sold, there's 900 left. There's 2 weeks to go. If a week after that, the Saturday afterwards, there was 500 left and they sent them back, I'd be a bit like, yeah, okay. But like, if you've sold out, that many tickets, 1,500 tickets in 5 days, you're going at 300 a day and you've got 900 left and you have 12 days before the game? Why on earth would you assume you're not going to continue, maybe not at exactly the same rate, right? Like obviously there are levels to it, but at least half the rate, which would comfortably sell out that allocation. Like it doesn't make any mathematical or logical sense, as well as just frustrating everyone to death. So yeah, I don't really know what to say apart from I just think it's really stupid.
I know that like the fan advisory board gets stick from the fan base, and I understand the rationale, but when I spoke to David Claridge, it was these kind of communication things that he really wanted to clear up. So I would be interested to see from the fan advisory board, and we are trying to arrange another chat with them as to how they've progressed with trying to like their communication to the club, that the communication on these things needs to be better and improved. It all seems quite simple to fix these issues.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, issues always feel very simple to fix when you're not in them, right? Like, and I do appreciate that, but like, I don't feel like the communication for the club has got any better. So I would like to know what the fan advisory board have been doing for the last 7 months.
Yeah. Let's move on to Brighton at home on Saturday. I can't read Brighton. I cannot understand whether they are good, bad, indifferent. I know at the beginning
all of them, I think they're all of those things.
At the beginning of the season, you were pretty hot on Brighton. You thought they were going to finish, maybe challenged the top 5. Yep. I think we can probably safely say that they won't be doing that. No, but I don't
think we can safely say that because no one has any idea what this club are about. Like, it doesn't make any sense what they're doing. They were dreadful against Bournemouth on Monday night. And look, credit to them. They were harshly done by the penalty. It felt like every decision in that last 10 minutes of the first half went against them. But in the second half, they didn't find ways. And then they obviously found a wonder goal to dig them out right at the end. You know, you watched them in the FA Cup against Man United, and I thought they were really good in that game, right? Like I thought that they were brave and bold and bright.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at that and think, well, what happened? The City game, they were excellent, I thought, in the 1-1 draw there, and they were a bit unlucky not to win that. Then in the West Ham game, they were absolutely god-awful. Like, none of it makes any sense whatsoever to me. And trying to get a read on Brighton, apart from the fact that Fulham usually beat Brighton at home, is almost impossible right now. But like, you say that, and look, the league is obviously weirdly concertinaed in terms of they are currently on 30 points. Man United in 5th are currently on 35 points. Like, I am not suggesting that Brighton can't push for those kind of European spots. I think that'd be wild to rule out, in the same way that I don't think it's wild to rule out Fulham pushing for a European spot, or I don't think it's wild to push out, Tottenham turning it around and pushing for a European spot. Like, I don't think any of this makes loads of sense. And trying to read the Premier League this year, apart from Arsenal good, and honestly, up to this point, I was going to say Wolves and Burnley bad, but apparently Wolves are all right now. So, like, Burnley bad, like, I don't really get it. Like, none of the rest of it makes any sense. So, trying to guess who's going to finish where is a bit of a fool's errand. But Brighton might be the most kind of nuts of the lot. They feel like the most up and down of the lot. They feel like the most mercurial of the lot. And I have absolutely no idea which Brighton are going to turn up at the Cottage at the weekend, and that scares me.
Yeah, I mean, the goal by Kostoulas, by the way, Diamanti Camera.
He's a really, really good footballer.
He's got posters of Diamanti Camera doing it against Spurs in his bedroom. It's the same. It's the same. Little overhead kick to yourself. It is wonderful. The commentator kind of talked about, like, reference.
Yeah, it wasn't like enough.
I was like, it's a wonder goal. He was like he scored a back post header or something like that. I was like, can we have a bit more like love for him, like finding the top corner with an overhead kick in the 90th minute, please. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a game that has been incredibly fruitful for us, Brighton at home. They see us as
their bogey team.
As a bogey team.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was put to bed a little bit last year by the fact they won the game at the Amex, but Craven Cottage still very much a little bit of a hoodoo place for them.
I remember reading Brighton fans' tweets last year after being like, we're just never going to see us win at Craven Cottage. Just never going to do it. It's never going to happen. And I was like, I probably will. Like, as a Fulham fan, I guarantee you this will happen at some point. Yeah. But yeah, we seem to have a hold on them here, and look, long may it continue. But it also wouldn't surprise me if in this absolutely bizarre season that makes absolutely no sense, this was the year that Brighton broke their hoodoo, because nothing makes sense this season.
Today's episode of the Fulhamish podcast is brought to you by our friends at My Kind of Cruise. 2026 is here, and if you're thinking about where you're going to be going on holiday this year and a sea voyage is what you fancy, then My Kind of Cruise is the perfect website and app to compare all the different cruise operators and packages across the world. Wherever you want to go, whatever cruise line you want to go on, My Kind of Cruise has them all beautifully listed for you, and they have some amazing deals on multiple different operators. Right now, they've got some brilliant value offers on Disney cruises, ambassador cruises, whatever type of cruise floats your boat, pun intended, then My Kind of Cruise is the website to check it out. And Fulhamish listeners and watchers get an exclusive discount when they use the code Fulhamish at checkout. So go to My Kind of Cruise, use the code Fulhamish, and get a great deal on your 2026 holiday. Yeah, I mean, Jack, just looking at like the league table and Fulham's run of results, and of course, what happened last Saturday at Ellen Road. I know it's obvious to say this for every game, but I feel like Fulham really need a win here, really need a response to last Saturday. And I guess this is what can happen in the Premier League, right? We've been on a really good run, a nice little unbeaten run with some good wins in there, but lose on Saturday. Our next game is Manchester United away, and they look kind of rejuvenated under Michael Carrick.
We'll see. Let's not make any sweeping assertions after one game.
They looked good.
Well,
right?
United playing on the counter-attack looking good. Absolute shock horror. Like, as in, what are we, in 2018? Like, as in, like, it's fine. If United play like they played against City against Fulham, no one will have the ball. Like, no one will have the ball. There is no way that Fulham go there and just like, yeah, cool, we'll have 70% possession. Like, it's fine. And look, I'm not suggesting that it's going to be a disaster, but I need to see more than just one good counter-attacking performance against a City side absolutely reeling with a load of 18-year-olds at the back to be like, oh, Man United back.
Okay. My point remains, though, that it's a difficult game at Old Trafford that you can't...
We win all the time at Old Trafford.
It's a tricky game. It just feels like one that I want a nice routine home, 3 p.m, 3 points, see you later, meet you at the Duke of Cornwall, off we go.
Yeah. See you at the Duke. Yes, I think what's interesting for me is that the teams above us, who are like, if we're looking at this as a genuine thing, can we go and get into Europe? The teams above us have quite winnable games this weekend. You look at the Chelsea game, you look at the Brentford game, you look at the Sunderland game. I think Newcastle have Villa, so that might be a slight exception. Everton, they're all winnable. And you think, okay, all those teams are currently sort of in that standing with Fulham. That doesn't mean they're all going to win for what it's worth. Again, the Premier League is too weird to suggest that kind of thing. But there is what we don't want to happen is there a gap to open up around the sort of 9th mark, where that's 4 points, to the team in 10th. And I worry that if Fulham end up on the wrong side of that divide, it's going to be very, very difficult to find the momentum to keep it going and to actually close that down. So I think that with the games for the teams who are sort of in that mix with us this weekend, who are, against a lot of the teams at the bottom, and again, it's not saying that everything's a guaranteed win or anything like that, but, that they're more likely to be. I think it would just be a really important one to Fulham to just, establish them back in that conversation. And as we say, like, I've still got Brighton in that European race, right? If Fulham were to win here, it would open up a 4-point cushion on Brighton.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're looking at it in a slightly different manner. And again, look, Fulham might finish 10th and Brighton might finish 11th, or it might be completely different by the end of the season. I'm not saying that that's the guarantee that therefore it opens up a buffer that you can't close, but it would be nice to keep ourselves in the conversation on the coattails of those teams in and around us. And I think that that's a thing we can look at with the AFCON boys coming back and think this is a squad that's about to get stronger. If those transfers that we're talking about, one or two of them do come through, suddenly Fulham look like in a much better position at the start of February than they did at the start of January. Well, then maybe there is a conversation to be had about what Fulham can achieve this season, especially in a very bizarre, congested Premier League.
You mentioned the AFCON boys. This should be a lot of fun to go through the lineup because there's some choices, which is exciting. I'm so excited that Jack did a whoop just then.
I love a whoop.
Let's go through it. Leno in goal. Yeah. Right back, we assume that Kenny Tete probably isn't back, although I know he's getting close. Do you think Fulham will go with the back four?
Yes.
Okay, so Timmy Castagna at right back. Obviously, Anderson alongside him. Is it Cuenca or Bassey?
I think it's Bassey.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Like, I've enjoyed watching Jorge Cuenca. I think he's been good. I don't think he was particularly good against Leeds, but then again, nor was really anyone.
I think he's best of a bad bunch.
Yeah, I mean, look, as in, to be honest, the bar's on the floor. Yeah. But like, sure. I think he's done a relatively good job without like being, wow, he has to start for the rest of the season. And look, I tweeted before AFCON saying I was excited about the run of games that Jorge Cuenca was going to get, and talking about his ability to pass out of the back and whether that might negate some of the issues we've had in the midfield. I think some of that has come to fruition without it being like a, wow, he's been incredible. And considering what Calvin Bassey put in at AFCON. And look, I think there was a very, very decent argument that you could have made that Calvin Bassey was player of the tournament. I thought he was absolutely sublime for Nigeria as centre-back, to the point where we're now seeing links, and, we talk about transfer links in, we're talking, there's links of Inter coming in for Calvin Bassey in the summer. There's talk of some big, big clubs having real interest in his services. Now, I think that Fulham have a pretty special player here. And Calvin Bassey isn't perfect, right? Like we've talked about this before. One of the things that holds him back is he occasionally just has games where you're like, what are you doing? But I think coming off the back of an incredible tournament and the performances he put in, I would have Calvin Bassey back in the team. I think that would give everyone a bit of a lift. So I'm going to say get him back.
See, I'm going to bat for the opposition here. Come on. Jorge Cuenca has come in, made the spot his own. Hasn't put a single foot.
What do you mean made the spot his own? He didn't have any competition.
But he's right at home at that left centre-back spot. I think we've kept clean sheets. We've been defensively very, very solid with him in the team. I think we have been a better team with Jorge Cuenca. Look, I love Calvin Bassey, and
when that guy Welbs runs flat over him at the weekend, you're going to be like, oh, I should have played Calvin Bassey.
When Fulham have a nice, steady 1-0 win because the defence is just calm and competent. Look, I like Calvin, and I'm really excited of how well he did at the AFCON. And I read Drew Heatley's article where actually there's not a bad argument to be made of actually try and drive someone like Bassey's price up, cash in on the hype. You've got a perfect player waiting in the wings. I think if you drop Jorge Cuenca now, straight away, you are sending a really bad signal to Jorge Cuenca. I think you are saying, I think if you're Jorge Cuenca, you're ringing up your agent on Friday evening when they find out what the team is, and saying, get me out of here.
I don't think
I'd like to play for a club that actually respects that I'm a decent Premier League centre-back.
I think if you are going to bring Bassey back in and you're Marco Silva, you have a conversation with Jorge Cuenca and you say, look, the interest in him is incredibly high right now. We're going to cash in this player. We know that you are an excellent footballer and we're going to give you minutes throughout the season. But right now, I'm putting Calvin Bassey on the back of an international high back into the team. For what it's worth.
For a different team. Bassey's played well, but played well for Nigeria. He hasn't played well for Fulham.
He has played well for Fulham.
No, as in but you can't base whether we should bring in Calvin Bassey because he's had a great tournament for Nigeria.
Okay, so we shouldn't sign Oscar Bobb then?
No.
Because he's played well for Man City a few times, not for Fulham.
He's in form for Nigeria.
What do you mean?
A completely different...
This is nonsense.
No, it's a completely different team.
He's a centre-back. He plays centre-back for Nigeria in the same way he plays centre-back for Fulham.
I don't think the fact that Calvin Bassey was playing well for Nigeria is going to necessarily mean he comes in and absolutely smashes it at centre-back for Fulham.
For what it's worth, I think Marco Silva will stick with Jorge Cuenca, but I wouldn't.
Okay.
So, there we go.
I actually think the other way round. I think that Marco Silva will go with Bassey, but I wouldn't. I think is maybe the way I see it.
Well, I guess we'll find out together.
1:45 on Saturday is going to be extremely interesting. Obviously, one way that Marco Silva could just settle both our arguments
is play Calvin Bassey left back.
Yeah. Which might be a possibility. I don't think he'll do that, but if there's maybe just been a bit of regression, and you never know if that Robinson bad performance on Saturday might have been injury related or fitness related. Yeah, but it could have just been a bad game. We might not try to make
without being funny. I would also start Anthony Robinson, but you can make a decent argument to be like, after a bad game, should Ryan Sessegnon get an opportunity there? That's fine.
Yeah, although Ryan Sessegnon hardly covers himself.
This is what I mean. Like, going back to that earlier point.
I think if you start dropping people on Leeds, you have to drop most of the team.
Yeah.
Like, it was a bad performance all round. Yes, there were some worse than others.
Drop them all.
Let's just assume Robinson. Midfield. Now, I mean, I guess it's been played straight into Marco's hands here with the Lukic injury. That Iwobi will just get his spot straight back alongside Sanderberg.
Yeah, but you can't just assume that because Alex Iwobi played well for Nigeria that he's going to play well for Fulham. Like, it makes they're different teams. So maybe Tom Kearney should play.
And if Sasha Lukic was playing as well as Jorge Cuenca had been,
I would be like, Alex Iwobi has just had an absolutely unbelievable tournament, running the midfield from deep for Nigeria in exactly what we've been asking for in a Fulham role.
It's also not a like for like comparison because you know that Sasha Lukic Lukic and Alex Iwobi aren't the same player, whereas
Nor Cuenca and Calvin Bassey.
They play the same role and can do the same things.
No, they don't.
They play left centre back, whereas
Sasha play centre midfield. Like that's such a reductive argument.
No, I'm not having this.
No, that's so ridiculous.
This is not the same.
You think that Calvin Bassey and Jorge Cuenca's play styles are similar?
No,
because they're not similar at all.
As in Alex. I can't deal with it.
Mate, honestly,
you know that these aren't the same thing.
Of course they're the same thing. Like one of these players plays the role in a different way to the other. That's exactly the same thing.
Look, whatever you say, Alex Iwobi should come back in. And it's not just because of Lukic's injury.
I agree. I think Alex Iwobi should start because he's been excellent in the midfield for Nigeria.
Yeah. No.
Tom Kearney's been excellent for Fulham in the last few weeks. Why aren't you calling for him to start?
He hasn't been as excellent as Jorge Cuenca has been standout good.
I actually think Tom Kearney's been Fulham's best player in the last 3 weeks.
You're not taking this seriously.
I'm just saying, Alex Iwobi and Calvin Bassey should both play. Do you know who else should play? Samu Chukwueze. I'm joking.
Well, no, I mean we will come on to it. So look, it looks like it'll be Sander and Alex by default. Whatever the argument is, they will start because obviously Sasha has picked up an injury. Don't exactly know how serious that is, but I think that's pretty obvious. And then obviously against Leeds, one thing that I think frustrated me the most was Marco's slightly bizarre decision to start Smith Rowe on the left, Sessegnon on the right, and Wilson in the 10. I mean, you've got all the right components there. Just put them where they need to be played. Sess on the left, Smith Rowe in the middle, and Wilson on the right, where they've been thriving.
Yeah, like the only thing I will say about that, and actually in Marco's defence briefly, is that I think Sess is much more effective on the right-hand side of an attack when he's playing in those positions. We talked about this last year, right?
But
I think he was trying to actually make that. Well, I agree. You've put two players out of position to try and accommodate one, right? And I actually think you're right. But I can understand why
we agree on something.
I can understand why his head's gone there because obviously Smith Rowe does drift into those left-hand channels. Cutting inside, you're expecting Robinson to burst down the flank. Wilson has been good in the 10 before and is excellent there often on international duty for Wales. Yeah. I know it's not for Fulham. But in terms
he's been fantastic there for Wales, isn't he? Let's put him in the 10.
But I think that there's a look, I don't mind Harry wasn't in the 10, but I do think you're right in that two players just felt like they were out of sync with everybody else. And therefore you've got to change that. I think Harry goes back on the right. I think that maybe he gives Josh King an opportunity here.
Do you think Smith Rowe's been
really good? Like, and I personally would start. Personally, I would start Smith Rowe. I would keep him. But I wonder if Marco looks at that and just thinks about, like, I need to make a few changes just to tweak things up from the Leeds performance. Mm-hmm. And therefore, that's a change that he has available to him when he doesn't have loads of options in loads of areas. But I would start Smith Rowe. And then I think I'd probably start Kevin.
No.
I think I probably would because actually I don't think Chukwueze has had a brilliant tournament in AFCON. I actually think that, take the penalty miss aside, right? The penalty miss is whatever it is. But I just don't think he's had as consistent or as, front foot forward a tournament as the other two have, where it feels like they will walk back in terms of, building kind of momentum. I feel like if anything, Chukwueze's momentum might have been stalled a little bit by the competition, and therefore I would potentially ease him back in slightly more.
See, I would put Chukwueze straight in on the left. He's basically had a month of not playing too much football, but still kept fit. I think he'll be ready and raring to go. Back to an original point.
Oscar Bobb on the left.
As I kind of referred to earlier, I don't think the AFCON will massively affect this. I think Chukwueze comes back in and starts and picks up where he left off. And I think, look, Kevin, I think, is working as an impact sub this season, and I think that will be his role between now and the end of the season. He can make an impact off the bench. We know that's probably where he's going to be best this season. And look, next season is next season. Raul up top because obviously.
Raul up top.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see both Fulham and Brighton have got an aging striker up top doing bits.
Yeah. I got a question actually for you. In terms of, we saw obviously Marco come out about Jonah Kusiasare earlier on in the window, and basically like we were going to terminate the loan, but actually he's really improving, etc. We think that he's got the potential to grow. We really like what we're seeing from him. If Fulham sign a striker, if Fulham sign a Ricardo Pepi, or they sign a Troy Parrott and Evan Ferguson, does does that just go out the window? Do you just send it back? Like, because they're not going to sell anyone else in this window. It's not like they're going to sell Raul or Muniz in this window. And I know that obviously Rodrigo is still injured at the moment, but like 4 strikers on the books for one position feels mad.
Yeah, I for what it's worth, I guess it's up to Bayern Munich and whether they see actually, look, he's still probably the third choice striker, i.e. Until Muniz is back. Maybe when he's fourth choice striker, they might look at it. But
you can't really cancel the loan in like February, can you? Unless he gets injured.
I imagine that Bayern Munich would be like, look, he's probably not going to sign for Fulham permanently. He's not going to be playing for us either.
Yeah.
He's either going to be an RB.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, is it worth, like, at that point, is it like we go and we send him out on loan somewhere else? That's because my thinking around it.
Potentially.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
I imagine that Bayern might just look at this season as a little bit of a write-off. It's not quite worked out, but he has still, gone to a different footballing culture.
Environment,
He's probably learned a lot. He has played some minutes at quite senior level, even if it's just been fleeting sub appearances here and there for an 18-year-old. If you're Bayern, you're probably looking at it and going like, could have been better, but also what were we expecting from a Premier League football club? They were going to start our 18-year-old every week. It was just unlikely to happen when they agreed to the deal. So I said this to Jack and Joe last week. I still think Fulham should pick up a striker because right now, look, Muniz apparently is his date is pushed back a little bit. I think it's
back on the grass, I believe.
I think it's going to be most of February. We still don't see Rodrigo Muniz, and so right now you are still in a situation where if Raul picks up an injury for at least a month, you're still not got Rodrigo Muniz back. Then you've got a recovering Rodrigo Muniz who's being expected to play 90 minutes. We need to sign someone.
The very funny thing is when we sign a broken arm Ricardo Pepi, he can't play at the moment. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
That's why I find the Ricardo Pepi thing hard to believe, is that we would go and sign when we do have some immediate concerns. And of course, you're not signing Ricardo Pepi for 1 month. You're signing him on a long term, years, seasons.
I think he's an excellent footballer.
We need a footballer now. I said last week on the Jack and Joe show that I still think Callum Wilson, although actually it was my heart sank slightly when he scored that 93rd minute goal.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and he said that he wants to stay and fight and all of that. I was like, oh god.
Nah, Daniel Marlon scored in his Roma debut. The Ev is up for grabs.
Yeah,
it's time to bring in Evan Almighty.
You've wanted Evan Ferguson for a long time, purely because he's Irish, but.
No, like I also think he's a very talented footballer that's just not being given the rub of the green anywhere. And look, there is questions about the fact that he just keeps randomly picking up knocks. Like, and I get that, but also I still think that if someone can coach the best out of him, there's a really, really special player there somewhere.
Yeah. Let's go on to some emails. Speaking of strikers, this leads me on nicely. Patrick Vanderpant said, "Hi, Fulhamish team. Thought I'd put together a nice chart of Raul's minutes so far this season. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll stick the chart in so that you can see it. If not, I'll have to do my best to audio explain a chart, which isn't the simplest chart thing." He said, "I put together a nice chart of Raul's minutes so far this season to show what an incredible job he's doing for us. Given Muniz's last start was in September and his serious injury was in November, we would be nowhere without Raul, possibly still in the relegation scrap.
Yep.
In the hunt for player of the season, despite Wilson's golden form. Thanks from Paddy." So I'm just showing Jack this chart and the amount of minutes that he's played. I mean, you can quite clearly see in August it's 115 minutes played, and this includes Mexico friendlies. In September he played 231. In October he played 254. In November it went up to 477. In December 505, and already in January, and by the way, this was actually sent to us before the Leeds game, it's 298. So we're looking at more like 380 now when you include the Leeds game. I mean, it's a serious shit. I mean, no one can deny that. And I think Patrick's right that actually if there was a player of the season vote now, I think Wilson would win, but probably Raul should be second.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think Raul's doing a wonderful job, and to be honest, I don't think he needs to be displaced anytime soon, right? Like it's not. I don't think Fulham need to sign a striker right now because Raul isn't playing well or doing his thing. I think you're absolutely right on if he picks up an injury, what on earth do Fulham do? And that, I think, is the worry when you're a player at this age and you are being asked to play so many minutes. So, yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's a very good point. So thank you, Patrick.
Gregory Perry, great name. Dear Fulhamish podcast team, thanks. Round of applause for the podcast. Been listening for over 5 years. Fulham fan since 75 and living abroad a long time. Thanks for the analysis and banter. Just a thought on the January transfer window. I wonder how much we can spend with the financial restraints imposed. This is never really discussed and not sure how we know. If we want to sign Chukwueze and then a decent striker and then a decent midfielder, is it actually possible? And if so, what's the limit? By the way, top priority clearly getting Wilson and Marco to sign as well. That's from Gregory. I mean, the issue is that no one really knows how much you've got to spend, and you can read all the Swiss Ramble and Kieran Maguire and the financial reports you want. It's deliberately opaque for a reason, and I always think that a bit like a government, if we absolutely had to spend in an emergency, there's always a way of Fulham being able to make it work. But clearly, if we did go and spend 40 million on Atta, 35 million on Oscar Bobb, and then 30 million on Ricardo Pepi, there is a poor accountant somewhere in the universe who is going to have to work very, very hard to make this all work with. It's not called FFP anymore, is it? It's called squad cost ratio.
Yeah, I mean, look, also we're in that weird period at the moment where we're transitioning between the two things. So we're going from PSR to the SCR model, and no one's quite sure exactly what any of them mean yet. So, like, it does feel like a bit of a strange period where you might be able to get away with a little bit more because we're in grey areas, because there's going to be a different system in place next year. I wonder if Fulham are looking at this window and saying, you know what, this is actually quite a good time to spend, because it might end up getting lost in the ether of what things are and how they kind of work out. So, yes, I don't think Fulham have £100 million to spend in this window. I think there might be 50 available. It doesn't necessarily mean... And look, that 50 available, if Fulham don't spend anything, if no one comes through the door, I'd imagine that 50 is more available in the summer, right? And so there are different elements to all of this. But I'd imagine that if Fulham wanted to spend right now, it's not going to burn them. It just might mean that there's slightly less on the table for when it comes to June.
Yeah, I think like we would be lying if we said we could sit here and tell you exactly how much Fulham have to spend. We don't know as much as anyone else, really. I guess you have to just look. There's too much now at stake to break the rules.
Yeah.
But Everton and Forest have proven
that to break the rules with no kind of mitigation at the very least.
Yeah, is you will get a points deduction. The Premier League have shown their teeth. And as much as Everton and Forest fans still fume about the whole way that happened, if it did one thing, it did make the rest of the Premier League buck their ideas up and go, oh, okay, you're not messing around.
Yeah. You're not playing.
Yeah, so the fact that we're linked with 35 million pound Bobb and 40 million pound Atta and put in a 20 million pound bid for Atta, I think it's safe to assume there's 50 at least on the table, as you say. And I think if it was 70, clearly Fulham probably would be able to do that.
Yeah, they just find a way.
There would be some, down the line, some other strings that we would need to pull. I mean, one bit of money that might be coming in quite soon is the 20% sell-on fee for Harvey Elliott. Obviously, there's that whole situation where Aston Villa don't want to play.
It's not going to be to Villa, yeah.
Aston Villa don't want to play him because if he goes over 10 games, I think they're obligated to pay this fee. But
poor old Harvey. I know he's not a favourite of the Fulham fan base, but like I do really feel for him.
There is 7-8 million though coming to Fulham, and that's again like pure profit. An academy graduate.
Effectively, that gives you a 40 million transfer if you sign them on a 5-year contract, right, with the amortization and all of those things. So, like, there's ways to make it stick.
This one from Mark Whittack I enjoyed. Hello, Thursday Club, and I hope this email finds you well. As I write this email, Fulham have just put the boys in blue back to their rightful place in the pecking order, and oh, what a game, and my goodness, Harry Wilson, you're now scoring with your right too. Here's my question for the panel. As I watched Raul's sweet header just tuck inside the post, I had this thought. If I had to pick between Raul Jimenez or Brian McBride, who would I take? They are both solid character guys, hold the play up well, work tirelessly, and are fantastic in the air. For me, though, I know I'd take Raul. His soccer IQ is off the charts. He is equally as good with his feet as in the air. hasn't missed a penalty kick in the Prem, and he answers the call every time and gives 100%. And I never really see him complain much about service like Mitro always did. I'm curious what the panel's answer will be. That's from Mark.
I think Raul is the better player.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's little doubt that Raul is a better, more complete football player than Brian McBride is. I think if you're talking about servants to the club, McBride probably edges that category. So it depends on how you're kind of framing it in terms of what he's been.
My thing is all-round striker, Raul, completely. And the level that Raul hit, he was a Champions League level striker in his pomp.
Yeah. If he hadn't got the injury, there was a genuine, real chance that Raul would have gone to Barcelona and been their number 9.
Yeah. He is a very, very good footballer. The head injury came at a bad time, and some of the football he played at Wolves when he was absolutely in his best form, he was almost unplayable. There's a reason that Wolves finished 7th and all of that. But if a ball is floated into the box from a free kick, and I can choose one player to put their forehead on the end of it, it's Brian McBride, who I can guarantee will find the back post with that header every single time. Brian McBride is a better header of the ball.
Yeah.
But other than that, like hold-up play, intelligence, and all of that, it's not that Raul was a bad header of the ball, but Brian McBride was amazing.
I think the difference is that Brian McBride would have probably clambered over 4 players to get to the ball, whereas I think Raul isn't quite that kind of... It's not necessarily a criticism, and it's not to do with his desire or work rate or anything like that. He's just a bit more of a cerebral footballer.
Yeah.
And like... He'll probably be have kind of drifted around one of them, whereas McBride was a bit of a teddy bear, like to sort of just climb over people.
Yeah,
I loved Brian McBride.
One of my
I think the answer is Raul.
Yes, it is. But one of my favourite goals, obviously, amazing headed goal from Brian McBride was against Everton at home, where he's on the edge of the penalty area and he somehow manages to steer it in. Past someone like Thomas Sorensen diving, flapping.
Great, that's a great callback.
But the goal in the Great Escape, Birmingham City at home, the free kick from Bullard, the header from McBride. I remember being in the Riverside lower for that goal and just had this perfect angle of it.
I was in the Putney end.
Where I was like, it's him. I've started celebrating as it left his head because you could just see from my angle, I was like, no keeper's getting anywhere near that. Yeah. And just that situation, Brian McBride was chef's kiss. But all-round striker. It's Raul. It's Raul. This one from David Nicholson. We'll do this as the final email today. Evening, Fulhamish. In a car back from the game, a first trip to Elland Road, in brackets proper football ground, and time for a liked, didn't like review. Liked, obviously not much, but Cuenca and Anderson were solid. Smith Rowe buzzed around nicely at times, and Leno didn't seem troubled much at all, and a great save at the end to prevent a more hurtful scoreline. Yes, it probably should have been 2-0. Didn't like Robinson's final ball, Cess looking a bit lost and ineffective, ditching the back 5 against a physical team, 1 shot on target, and the second half. Time for a regroup. Nigerian guys coming home, and hopefully Muniz and Tete back to fitness soon. Come on, you whites, from David. Think that probably we could have saved the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, we could have just read that out. That's fair. Totally fair. Yeah, well done, David. I thought it was going to be like a like, didn't like about Ellen Road. That was what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
I didn't like carpets. Like, really confused by the fact there's carpets in the away end.
It is a really weird away end.
It really is. It's really old school. It feels like you've walked back like into the 70s, the away end. It's bizarre. I like it a lot, but it's bizarre. Yeah.
I mean, as David said, it is a proper football ground, and I mean, I only watched on a stream, but the noise when Metro scored, I was just like, oh.
Yeah. As a release as much as anything else, though. I would have been so frustrated for 90 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. And that'll do for the podcast today. Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you, Sammy. Always a pleasure. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's really good to be back. I think we might have one more of these in the tank before I'm at that point now with my impending baby that it's kind of like any day now. So if I'm here next week, I'll see you next week.
Great.
Who knows? But if not, then the Thursday Club will return as always. And Fulhamish will be back on Monday with a review of the Brighton game. We'll also have the quick take live from Craft Beer Co. straight after the game as well. So thank you very much for watching and for listening. You whites.
Come on, you whites.